Hey guys, it's Tom Clark over at TFCIV MMA, and as you can see, we're joined with a pretty awesome guest today. We have UFC Flyweight Miranda Maverick. Miranda, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Are you already in camp for your upcoming fight yet? I know we're about 9 weeks out, so I don't know what kind of time frame you're on.
Yeah, starting this week actually is when I'll be like hitting it hard. Starting tomorrow. Today was going to be the case, but had a couple things come up.
Oh, I get you 100%. And what does your usual camp look like? I mean, I know a lot of people kind of go hard at the beginning and kind of taper off towards the end. Is that kind of how you do it, or kind of walk us through how you do a camp?
Yeah, so for one, I train just about the same whether I'm in or outside of camp. I just add a couple private lessons and I go harder during sparring and make that more specific to a game plan during training camp, basically more intense training. So starting like this week up until around 5 weeks, it'll be like a slow progression upwards. I want to peak around the 5-4-3 week timeline, and then I taper back down like right before fight, just so I don't get hurt, don't have injuries, and can let my body recover while I'm going through a weight cut.
Nice, nice. You're a Team Elevation, correct? That's from what I was reading.
Yeah, technically, I'm up here. I just kind of take that name because everybody in Denver pretty much falls under that. But I train specifically under Easton Training Center and Pound for Pound Muay Thai with Elliot Marshall and Justin Howden.
Oh, nice. How much do you think the elevation kind of helps you training in elevation, going back down to sea level? How much of a cardio advantage do you think that gives you?
I think it gives me a lot. When I came out here, I really struggled to spar with everybody and keep up the first 2 to 3 months. Now I say I'm very well conditioned. I go elsewhere, like I go back home and I'll train there. And I feel like my cardio just runs forever when I'm doing the things I'm used to. I still can't really tell a difference when I'm running or something like that. Just usually if I'm pushing my body and can really tell against other people I'm sparring with.
Oh, nice. So you're going up against Jasmine. Like I said, we're about 9 weeks out. UFC 289. She's coming off a pretty impressive win her last time out. You're coming off two straight wins. How do you kind of see this fight going? I mean, in your mind, what's the ideal situation this plays out? Obviously, both of you guys are great grapplers, but what advantages do you think you have in this one?
I mean, I think I have the striking advantage times 10. I don't think her striking hangs with mine at all. We could see in her last fight against Gabrielle and even the one against Natalia that she just didn't like keep up in the striking as far as volume, as far as strength. And that's one thing I bring to the cage that I don't think she'll be able to keep up either is my pressure, my strength, that she's not used to really being bullied in there. Even Gabrielle like would move back and let her kind of progress forward. And I plan on just cutting off the cage, not letting her have her chance at getting positional advantages, which is usually against the cage, just holding someone there, trying to take them down. I don't think her wrestling pedigree is as good as it gets spouted on, the UFC commentary and stuff. Of course, you have to pick positives when you commentate. But I feel like my wrestling's better than hers. I feel like my grappling will be better than hers. I don't think she has really anywhere that she's better than me, but I plan on being better everywhere dominantly and putting on a win that has a finish in it.
Yeah, I get you 100%. Yeah, because that was the first thing that came to mind when this fight was announced. Her last fight, she kind of dominated on the grappling, but her opponent just looked so out of touch down there. And not to say she didn't belong there, because anyone that's in the UFC is highly credentialed and such. But once it got announced that you guys are going to be fighting each other, I kind of realized that she's not going to have that grappling advantage with someone of your caliber there. So the rumors are that it's going to be in Canada. Have they given you an exact spot yet of where this fight's going to be?
Yeah, it sounds like it's confirmed in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I think they announced sometime. So I've actually been trying to get my family flights and get all that arranged for out there because it is a long way from home. It'll be my second time going outside the US for a fight. And that's kind of a pain sometimes because of taxes, because of just travel in general. But aside from that, it's pretty cool to get out there, have exposure internationally, and get a win internationally in her home country.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, because correct me if I'm wrong, but your last fight out of the U.S. was in Abu Dhabi, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so you're going from there where there was an environment, but it was not much. So how much do you think it's going to affect going straight into enemy territory and kind of having to rain on her homecoming parade with you getting the win out there?
I like it. I've always liked being an underdog when I went into fights. I don't think it affects my performance in the slightest. And this will be my first fight in front of a full UFC crowd. And I'm really excited for that. I was supposed to have that in Salt Lake City against Shanna Young, but that got canceled and rescheduled to just a UFC Apex card. So I'm really excited to be fighting in front of a crowd, in front of an audience, whether it's my hometown or not. I think I'll feel that energy, that pressure, and perform well under that.
Yeah, I agree. And that's kind of wild because I've talked to a couple people within the last week, and all of you guys have been in the UFC within the last 2 or 3 years. So it's kind of crazy that this is kind of be the first time for a lot of you guys kind of fighting in front of a live crowd, full capacity. And you've obviously fought on the regional scene before, I assume in front of crowds. How much do you think that changes things?
For me, it just doesn't ever matter. I love seeing fans, and I don't mean it that way. Like I love seeing my fans. I love being around people who are part of the sport, who love the sport. But as far as focus, as far as like the ability to not get nervous, I feel the same regardless. I focus on about 4 people when I walk into that ring. And that's my corners and sometimes their corners. If they speak English, I'll be listening to them too, tell them how to do it, just so I can see what they're about to counter with. And sometimes you can learn from that, have higher fight IQ as you go in there.
And I know you're not overlooking Jasmine. She's a very tough opponent, but a lot of people were expecting you to get someone ranked this time out. I know it's been the headlines, and I saw even you post about it. You had a fight against Macy Barber that a lot of people thought you won. She had another controversial decision this last time out. It's coming to the point where you're like, sooner or later, she's going to have to lose one of these fights because it's decision after decision. And I don't want to dog on Macy because it's not her fault the judges are picking her. But I mean, is that the goal after this fight? Is it kind of has to be someone ranked for you, or where are you kind of mentally on that?
No, as far as where I'm at with that, I'm big about sport. It's like I would love someone ranked, of course, but if I can make money fighting unranked opponents, fighting whoever they need, I'm going to be in this sport for a long time. I hope to be for time, and I'm young and climbing the ladder. There's no reason to rush it, and I'd rather be paid the same as these top 10 girls before I get there than being paid one of the least and, fighting these hard opponents. But whoever they put in front of me, I'm taking. I've called out top 15 opponents, top 10 opponents, haven't gotten them in the past. I'd like to call out Macy and have a rematch there. That's been called no in the past, but I hope that ends up happening. Like you said, I don't want to overlook this fight, and people like throwing crap. Everybody does, no matter what anyone posts in the MMA community. But when I posted about the Macy Barber fight, I know it's not her fault that decisions are being made the way they are, but I definitely think she could handle it a little bit classier when they are made that way, accept rematches when she's offered rematches. And I hope that ends up happening. And Jasmine is a good opponent. I called her out initially. I'm excited to have that battle with her and see who the better fighter is that night.
Yeah, and the thing with Macy is the last fight I think was close. I didn't give her the win, but it was close to where it could have gone either way. With your guys' fight, I thought it was a pretty clear win for you, to be honest. And if you look at the media scorecards, I think everyone kind of felt that way. And I've heard you talk in the past. You've tried for this rematch, but she's kind of went radio silent on you. Is that correct?
That's correct. There was a chance where there was a short notice offer given to me against her. That opponent fell out her that was injured, and it was actually a teammate of mine, and she said a direct no, and the whole fight just got canceled instead. And I was like, all right, cool, nice to know. What's the other thing? Oh, as far as the Andrea Lee fight, yeah, it's not the decision so much, right? As far as the decision, it could have went either way. It was much closer than mine. I thought Andrea Lee won as well, but it's the judge who gave her a 30-27, gave her no rounds. That is just, do you close your eyes and sleep, text on the phone the whole time? I have no idea. But judges do need to be held accountable. I think one way to do that is to separate the judges from the scene, have them be watching computer screens in a whole separate room, like a suite or something, to where commentators, to where corners, wherever you're sitting doesn't affect your decision making.
I agree with that 100%. And I think the San Antonio card really brought to light because there were so many decisions on that card. Like I really like Chito Vera. I had actually picked him going into that fight. There was no way he got a 48-47. There were several fights on the prelims as well where the judging was really bad. And that's one of the things that I have talked about in the past I think does make a huge factor is I've been floor side at UFC fights before. The view can be obstructed. And especially when you have 3 different views, like they're all seeing this fight differently. So I agree with that 100% that's a pretty good solution. I was going to ask kind of what your thoughts were to kind of hold these judges accountable when a bad decision like that happens. So other than them being behind the computer screen, kind of looking at from a monitor with the best view, are there any other any other, what's the word I'm blanking here, but resolutions you'd like to see to it?
I think there's trainings that they can do that can be MMA specific. You see a lot of commissions that just basically tell them the rules and are like, well, you've coached or you've refed or judged boxing before, you're good. Do MMA. Or they come from a grappling background and they're like, okay, throw them into MMA. And you see the differences in styles throughout judging, throughout the history of MMA, And, one big thing was the ref who had the thing happen at Fury, and then he judged the UFC card that next night. He shouldn't even be allowed on the commission. The commission needs to be held accountable too. But at the same time, we're going through unemployment in a lot of these careers because of the pressure that's involved with them and the low pay for a lot of the promotions. And a lot of it just needs new people. They need to be hiring more people. I don't know whether they need to incentivize retired fighters, but I think a lot of them could be retired fighters who have been in the sport and then become judges. I don't really know how to make that happen other than to incentivize it and invite more fighters to do it, advertise more for those positions.
Yeah, I agree with that. The tough part with the former fighters, I think that you could somewhat run into would be bias in the fights or so. But I think that is something, kind of time heals all wounds. Like you see DC and John Jones are even talking good about each other at this point. So I think that helps. I've talked with a couple of fighters in the past. What's your thought on the 10-point must system? Because it's been used forever and it would be tough to change. But I've also had a couple of fighters give me, they'd like to see it judged in each criteria and then a score kind of based off that. So what are your thoughts on the 10-point must?
I don't know. I kind of like the 10-point must. I think it's good. I think the clear scorings to where the fighters and corners can see it in each round is good too, but it also leads to stalling. There's just so much that could be restructured. I think the whole thing would have to be restructured if we decide to do that though. But that's the cool thing about MMA is it's such a new sport that any of that can be changed and improved over time.
Yeah, that's been my one critique with changing it is just the overhaul that would have to happen with it to you'd have to switch up the whole entity of the sport. So I agree it would be tough, but MMA is young enough to where you could make the changes. And then what about open scoring? That's been a very heavily debated topic over the last couple of years. A lot of people want it. So the people against it are saying it would make fights boring if someone knew they were up 2018. So what are your thoughts on that? Are you pro or anti open scoring?
I was saying, I meant to say open scoring. I don't know what I said, but where in between rounds, the coaches, the fighters could see it. I think it could lead to stalling, but it could also lead to urgency. So it's kind of a two-way street. Maybe being hidden is the best because that way everybody has urgency. You never know. But I think it also allows judges to make some crappy decisions without people knowing. The other thing about open scoring, if judges are still sitting down by cage side, is if someone's unhappy about it, especially in more regional shows and stuff where there's not as many security and things like that. I think it could really cause problems in undisciplined camps.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I saw an old video after this UFC San Antonio card where it showed how they would do the judging in early days of the UFC, where the judges would have to hold up their scorecards in front of the whole crowd. And I just thought you could not do that today with how big gambling and all this kind of stuff is in the fights. It would just be nearly impossible. So, but I think that also parlays into what you recommended with having these guys looking at it from monitors with screens. So that way they can get the full view and all that kind of stuff. So I think that could help as well. So my next question after that would be, obviously, like I said, we're about 9 weeks out. It's going to be a sold out crowd. This is going to be the first time UFC's gone to Canada in a while. You're probably going to be getting a lot of boos. She's the hometown girl. But ideally, what in a perfect world, how does this fight go in your opinion?
Round one, it's done. I hope to go in there, absolutely dominate the stand up, overwhelm her. And if she gets overwhelmed on the feet, but still stays durable enough to stay there, take her down, finish it on the ground.
There we go. And I know you said you're open to possibly top 15, but you want some more money with it. Maybe stay with where you're at, but fight a lesser level of competition. You get that round one finish. Who you calling out on the mic?
I'm calling out Macy Barber next. I'm happy with top 15. I didn't mean to say I don't want top 15. I'm just saying whoever they offer me, I'm happy with. I'm not going to reject a non-top 15er. I'll be like, great, let's fight. I'm getting paid the same either way. It's not like we get paid more for fighting top ranked fighters. I could fight number 2 in the world and get paid the same as fighting number 20. So I'm just ready to go in there, make money. This is my career and it is for fun. But, if I just wanted to have fun and got paid doing whatever, I'd probably just do jujitsu and not get punched in the face for a living.
Yeah, that's a nice point there. And with this one in June, you want to call out Macy. How many more fights do you think you'll get in 2023? If you get a round one finish in this one, you probably won't take much damage, though, so you could do a quick turnaround. Would you want to try and squeeze maybe 2 more fights at the end of the year, or do you think probably just 1 more for you?
Goal is always to have 3 to 4 fights in a year. That hasn't happened so far just because there's so many people on the roster. I've only had one time that I've taken enough damage that I was like, yeah, I should probably chill a little bit. And that was the Sabino Mazo, just an elbow. And because I've had surgery in the past with my eyes, it was a little bit more damaging than it should have been because of my scar tissue. And so I took a couple months off. I enjoyed a little bit of break, but came back in August. It was like March to August, and that was a long break for me. So I'm ready. I'm ready to go like 2 months after usually. I hope I get 2 more fights by the end of the year and can end 2023 with a bang.
Perfect. Well, it was a pleasure talking with you, Miranda. I can't wait to see you out there again. It's always entertaining fights when you're in the octagon. And my one last question is, we got a huge fight this weekend, UFC 287 in Miami. You can call it the rematch, you can call it the quadrilogy, whatever you want to call it. But who are you picking between Alex Pereira and Israel Adesanya?
I think I'm going to go with Alex.
I'm with you 100%. Well, I can't wait to see it. I hope for a great night of fights, and can't wait to see you out there, Miranda. Thank you so much for coming on.
Appreciate it. Have a good night.
You as well. Thank you. Well, guys, there we go. Interview with UFC Flyweight Miranda Maverick. As you can hear, she's excited to get back out there, wants a couple more fights this year. I'm really excited to see her out there. Like I told her, guaranteed performances every time that are going to make people excited. She goes for the finish. She doesn't always get it, but when she doesn't, she puts on a good show regardless. So thanks for listening. I hope you guys liked it. We got some more interviews coming up, hopefully this week. I'm trying to stay consistent, trying to keep going with the names. So have a great rest of your night and enjoy the fights this weekend.